I'm Marian Shuck, Gift of Hope Organ and Tissue Donor Network, and today I am joined by my friend and colleague, Monica Fox, Vice President for Governmental Relations and External Affairs, and more importantly, a two-time kidney recipient. And so we're going to talk about World Kidney Day and everything organ and tissue donation. Monica, thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me, Marian. You know I love talking with you.
I know. We're old friends and we have such a long and storied relationship now.
Yes.
10 years?
More than 10 years.
Yeah.
Started in 2014. So
yeah, 2014.
We're at 12 years now.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a long time. And we've seen kids graduate. You
Yes.
got a grandbaby.
Yes.
And Malika's at Northwestern. But thanks so much for joining me today. I really want to talk to you, and we'll get to World Kidney Day, right? We'll get to that, but I want our listeners to really understand and see the Monica Fox that I know. This is not the Monica Fox that I met 14 years ago. I'll let you tell your story about your journey through kidney disease and transplantation, not once, but twice.
Yes.
And the special gift that you got the second time,
Yeah.
right? So talk about how we met in 2014.
Yeah, so in November of 2013, I was suddenly diagnosed with kidney failure. I had no idea that I had it, and I ended up in the ICU and then went to rehab and ended up on outpatient in-center dialysis. They told me at that time the wait in Illinois for an organ, it's 5 to 7 years, and most people don't live for 5 years on dialysis. So I began to talk to friends and family about it. And I had a friend who knew Jack Lynch, and she connected me to Jack. And I sent him an email and said, this is my situation, and how can I help? Because I can't believe what I've been told. And he immediately connected me with you. And that began this relationship where we started working together. To this day, people still think I work for Gift of Hope, when I was a full-time dedicated volunteer.
Well, you remember what I told Jackie.
Years.
You remember what I told Jackie when you start working there. Don't get it twisted. She's still my volunteer, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So, but during that time when we were telling your story, remember, it was so important to tell stories, because when I started working for Gift of Hope, a lot of people didn't know about Gift of Hope. Even my own husband wasn't registered. I had to get him registered. But more importantly, we started to tell your story, and your story just picked up traction and it started working. And can you tell us a little bit about just the WAIT campaign and how you came up with that and what that meant to people, which really turned the tide in Chicago for organ and tissue donation?
It absolutely did. So you guys making me the face of waiting was just really incredible. It was an amazing video campaign where we talked about waiting in traffic, waiting at the light, waiting in line for coffee.
And my favorite was the Starbucks one.
Yeah.
Can you just please tell that story real quick?
Where we had several of my friends and Link sisters come in, and everybody was waiting in line to get coffee. And, then there I was waiting in line for a life-saving kidney. And for an undetermined amount of time.
Yeah, but what was powerful was your tagline. Imagine waiting for a kidney. You said, imagine waiting for coffee between 5,000 people.
Right.
Would you wait?
Would you wait? Yeah.
No, and then imagine waiting 5,000 on the kidney list.
Right.
Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah, it was really powerful. And I shared it all over my social media, and it really was an amazing campaign that really got people talking and understanding what I was going through. I had many people come forward to try to be my living donor. And unfortunately, in our community, so many of us are plagued with high blood pressure and diabetes and obesity that most people weren't able to help.
Not only weren't they able to help, but they weren't even able to advocate until you started advocating, right?
Right.
A lot of people continue to believe the misconceptions. They think that healthcare professionals won't save their lives. They think that if they get into a car accident, they'll let them die right there on the street. But as you and I both know, here's the biggest myth and misconception. If someone dies on the street and there are no life-saving measures, they are dead on the street and cannot be an organ and tissue donor, right? And donation can only occur in a hospital.
Right.
And that's the challenge in helping people of color recognize that not only do you have to advocate for yourself, you have to advocate for somebody else.
Yes.
But you have to understand the truth about organ and tissue donation.
Yes. And so many people, were unaware of that. And, through me sharing my story and talking about Gift of Hope and advocating everywhere that I could, educated a lot of people, especially through my social media. And it would just really warm my heart when people would reply to me and say, because of you, I registered to be an organ donor today. They would go and renew their driver's license and they would say yes when they had not done it before.
Right. And we really changed the narrative, right? We really worked on trying to make organ and tissue donation a social norm.
Yes.
We really worked on talking about bridging community to the hospitals, right? Because we know, you and I both know, that donation starts in the community. No matter what happens, it starts in the community because you have to have that conversation about organ and tissue donation. You have to talk about past medical histories so people can understand. But then if you walk into a hospital for a tragic circumstance, then we want people to know what's going to happen, because you and I both worked with the Secretary of State.
Yes.
We had many press conferences there, remember?
Yeah.
But the Secretary of State cannot perform organ and tissue donation.
Right.
What they can do is register.
Right. Right.
So talk a little bit about those experiences.
Yeah, so the conversation, that's the key. I think we really hammered that home, that people need to have the conversations at home, at dinner, at times when it's casual, so that when they get to the point, if they get to the point of a tragedy in a tragic circumstance, this is not the first time they've talked about it or thought about it, and they understand each other's wants and needs in that case. So, all the press conferences that we did were really important to raise awareness, and, the commercials that they would do annually. But really, I would see people's walls come down when I would share the story that I was waiting for a kidney transplant. Many people thought, if I give my kidney, it's going to go to a wealthy white person. It won't go to somebody who looks like me or who, shares anything that I share. And so when people realized that I was a person who was waiting, that would bring the walls down.
And it brought the walls down because a lot of, again, my job, my team's job, especially back then, was really about helping people understand the process of donation, what it actually takes to be a donor, what the process is when you get into the hospital, and then also about directed donation. And so we're going to segue just a little bit into that because, one, you really helped us in communities of color. We did Mayors for Hope. We did Churches for Hope. We started participating in your Links events, right? Where you knew a lot of people. So that edge in the community helped us change, again, the story and how people had conversations. And because of that, and because you were so involved on Facebook, it changed how you got your first kidney.
It absolutely did. So my first kidney came by directed donation.
And tell them what directed donation is.
Directed donation is when a person has a loved one who is in a position of being an organ donor. And in the case of my donor family, they said they wanted to know who their loved one's kidney was going to. And they asked if they could be sure that it was a Black person. And the person from the OPO in Tennessee told them that's not legal. The list is blind. We don't know the color of the recipients. However, if you know someone who's waiting and listed, then you can give us that information. And if it's a match, we can make that happen. So my donor, Milton, was a type O donor. His mother said that he always gave blood. And he said he always knew he could save lives through organ donation. And he wanted to do that. And so that's what happened. They called around on the most difficult day of their life when they had just been told their loved one was brain dead and his life as they knew it would never resume. Mm-hmm. They called around to family and friends to see if anyone knew someone who needed a kidney or a liver, which is what he could donate. And because I had shared my story on social media, one of my friends who had came forward and tried to be a living donor wasn't eligible. She reached out to me. She called me early one Monday morning and said, "Are you still waiting?" And she said, "I have a friend whose uncle was in a terrible accident, and they're preparing to donate his organs. Can I give them your information?" And 2 days later, I had received the precious gift of Milton's kidney, and forever changed my life. And that was, I received the kidney on the day before Thanksgiving. And so Thanksgiving was the best day ever.
It was the best day ever. And talk just a little bit about what it was like for his family to come up here and for us all to meet them and share our gratefulness at allowing you to have that gift through the directed donation.
That was so amazing. So I had met his family through social media, of course, and we had a couple of phone calls prior to me getting the kidney. So his daughter first called, even before my coordinator, and told me that her father was a match for me, and she had signed. She was his legal next of kin. She had signed for his kidney to be sent to me. And then his mother sent a message through my friend who connected us, and she asked her, "Is her mother still alive?" And she said, "Yes, her mother's still alive." She said, tell her mother, this is my gift to her." And then she said, "And tell her I expect great things out of her because my son would have been doing great things." And so it was just, just totally amazing to have that experience. And then to meet them when Gift of Hope arranged for them to come up from Memphis and Mississippi, which is where the daughter and the mother lived. And we met, and they just embraced me. And we hugged, and we cried, and we cried, and we hugged. And I was able to share my story in front of the huge congregation at Salem Baptist Church, House of Hope. And, with the media that was there. And it was just an amazing experience and just further education for everyone to be aware that this matters. Organ donation matters.
Yes.
It saves lives. It changes lives. So I no longer had to be tethered to that dialysis machine.
Oh, absolutely.
And I was able to go on and live my life. I began working at the Kidney Foundation.
So I was just going to say, let's segue into that, because this story, your story, when you talk about greatness, it is actually sandwiched between two donations.
Yes.
In this time, after you got the donation, and after I threatened Jackie that you were still my volunteer, you have gone on to have an incredible career at the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois.
Yes.
Starting out as their community outreach manager and just progressing. And you and I have had the same sort of upward bound trajectory. So tell me what it was like to start working at the National Kidney Foundation.
Well, that was a gift and a blessing. to be able to get paid to do what was so important to me and to stay connected to the community, because I worried that if I got too far away from the community, you don't want to forget. You want to remember. I'm a transplant recipient. I'm back to normal, but it's a new normal. So you want to keep that in mind. And I also just wanted to be able to help others who might follow in my footsteps and try to make their journey better than mine had been. And so it's been a gift and a blessing to be there. And the growth, like you said, it's been a trajectory of growth. I actually started out as an outreach specialist.
Oh, the specialist.
I walked right in, took an entry-level position because I knew I just needed to get my foot in the door, and have moved on from there. So it's been amazing.
And not only did you do that, but you did continue to volunteer for us. You went to the Transplant Games, and talk a little bit about the Transplant Games and why it was so important. to participate and then come back and tell people about it?
Yeah, so the Transplant Games is an amazing community. It's like the Olympics for people with transplants. So there's all these different activities you can participate in: basketball, volleyball, um, Texas Hold'em poker,
Yes.
all kinds of stuff. And
Your
so
medal came in.
I won a gold medal playing Texas Hold'em poker. Had never played before.
And ballroom dancing.
And ballroom dancing was my first event, and that was amazing. But the main thing about the Transplant Games is trading pins. So each team has a pin, and it sparks conversations among people. So you end up having conversations, sharing your story with people from all over the country, people from Australia and other countries. And that's the amazing part, is those connections that are made. And in fact, my sister was there at the first Transplant Games we went to. And as she had a conversation with somebody in our hotel lobby, we ended up connecting with the organ procurement organization requester, who had worked with my donor family and was the person who had told them if they knew someone who needed a kidney, they would make it happen.
And I worked with her for years. We sat on AMAT, which is the Association for Multicultural Affairs and Transplantation. And that's an association where people across the entire OPO industry come together to talk about how to better and debunk myths and misconceptions for communities of colors, which you have now since joined me in participating in that as well. And so from the Transplant Games, we go to the second Transplant Games, and you get sick. What happened?
So my illness began in January of 22 when I had COVID pneumonia. I was in the hospital for over 30 days, and they couldn't get my oxygen level to where it needed to be in order to release me. And they kept threatening to send me to a skilled nursing facility and said I won't survive. I had gone once after my first illness. I said, and people were dying during COVID at skilled nursing facilities. I said, I can't go there. So it was Operation Get Out of the Hospital and Go Home.
Right.
And so I finally did go directly home. But for the next 3 years, I struggled. I had a hard time breathing. I had a hard time ambulating. When we went to the Transplant Games, I had to ride a scooter.
Right.
Because I was still sick. I was sick. I was working with cardiology and pulmonology and the transplant team. And they were doing all they could, but cardiology was being very cautious with me because they did not want to blow my kidney. And my kidney function began to decline immediately after COVID.
Okay.
So finally, in May of 25, I ended up back in the hospital, and cardiology had to get aggressive with me. And they told me and my daughter, they said, we can save your mother or we can save her kidney. And Olivia said, save my mother. I have a kidney for her.
And let me just say that Olivia worked for me. When I met her during one of your events after she graduated from college, and I was like, oh, she's the one for me. And she came and worked for me for like 6 years. You've done an incredible job with her. She's just a wonderful human being. So when you told me that Olivia was going to be your donor, I mean, I cried because I feel like Olivia belongs to me too.
Yeah, she wanted to be my donor the first time around.
I remember.
But she was in college. She hadn't started her life. And she got tested, and she was a match. But God knew that I couldn't handle that. First of all, I didn't know enough about organ donation, living donation at that time. So I couldn't handle it. I thought, what if something happens to her while she's trying to help me? I wouldn't live. And so luckily, the directed donation came through right at the time that she was being tested.
Okay.
And so that solved that problem. But this time she wasn't taking no for an answer. The minute she had that conversation in my hospital room at UIC, she left there, went over to the transplant department where she works for transplant surgery now doing outreach. She went right over there, I talked to the nephrologist who she works with regularly and told her what she wanted to do. And they immediately started working her up. And she got worked up and approved pretty quickly.
And when did the transplant happen?
The transplant happened October 20th. And just a gift, an amazing gift that I was able to give her life. And then she turned around and gave me life.
And a grandson.
Oh, don't get me started talking about that grandson of mine. He is the best thing since sliced bread.
But you're here to see it.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? And that's what that gift is.
That's what that gift is.
You're here because of Milton, and you got to see your grandson.
Yep.
And now you're here, and you're able to stay with him. And people don't recognize or understand how important that is that gift allows you to continue to live your life and to see other milestones.
Yes.
So you look fantastic.
Thank you.
You worked hard for this transplant. You continue to work hard.
Yes.
And funny story, you told me earlier that you had a better time recovering than Olivia had a better time recovering, which is not normally the case, right?
I think she historically, one other surgery she had a hard time with the anesthesia.
Okay.
And then additionally, they pump your belly with gas to get to the kidney because they do it laparoscopically. And that gas is difficult to work out. So yeah, she had a rough recovery, but she's totally back to normal now. And as we talked about the gift that this is, I realized shortly after she gave me this kidney that I had been sick all of her adult life.
Okay.
My illness started just before she turned 21.
Okay.
And therefore I had been sick all my grandson's life as well. And now I feel better than I have felt since 2013. And so we were able to go, and celebrate and have a great time for his 5th birthday. And I'm just something that I wouldn't have been able to do in the past years.
And you look fantastic. So let's segue into you now continue to work for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, who's a wonderful organization who have supported you in every step of the way in your journey. And now you're back to work, and we're now celebrating, or we just celebrated World Kidney Day. So tell us why it's so important. First of all, tell us a little bit about the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, why they're important, and why they're an important partner and component for Gift of Hope.
Yes.
And then just about what you continue to do and why it's so important.
Yes, so at the Kidney Foundation, we support people through prevention, education, and empowerment. And so we do all kind of patient programming that is at no cost to the attendees, and just teaching people, like I said, teaching people about kidney disease, how to prevent it, if they're living with it, how to live a healthier life with it, how to get to transplant, and how to stay ready on the list, because so many people are limited on getting their transplants because they don't stay active on the list for many different reasons. So I used to say, you always have to stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
I remember what you used to say, your only job was to get a transplant.
Exactly. Yeah, that was it. So World Kidney Day is important because it shares the message about kidney disease. And this whole month is World Kidney Month, so you're shining a light on kidney health. And we have several events during the month that Gift of Hope supports us. We had a World Kidney Day huge kidney screening and health fair on the near west side on March 2nd, and then coming up this week on Thursday we're having another one March 12th in North Chicago. And so the partnership with Gift of Hope is so important because our messages are the same. You can't talk about organ donation without talking about kidneys. The majority of the people on the list are waiting for kidney donation.
And can you talk about why are kidneys so important? Why do people need to know about prevention, advocacy, awareness? And do you have any numbers that talk about how many people are actually waiting for kidneys?
So, well, in this country, there are 37 million people who have kidney disease, and 90% don't know it.
90%?
I was one of that 90% that
Okay.
didn't know it. And then African Americans are 4 times more likely than others to have kidney failure, and Hispanics are 3 times more likely. And on the list, at least here in Illinois, and the list is going down some, there's probably a little under 5,000 people waiting for a kidney transplant.
Wow.
And it's so pervasive because the main causes of kidney disease are high blood pressure and diabetes, which, highly impacts the Black community.
And it impacts our community how? Help people understand how.
Because people, if you don't maintain your high blood pressure and diabetes, like taking the medication, a lot of people go and they get diagnosed and they take it for granted because they don't feel sick. But you have to know your numbers, take the medication that's prescribed by the doctors in order to keep your blood pressure and your diabetes under control, because those two can highly impact your kidneys, which are the filters in your body. Your kidneys are your filters, and high blood pressure and diabetes can cause scarring in your filters. So imagine you got a coffee filter, and it gets clogged up with chocolate or something, and then your coffee is not going to flow through the way it should. So that's the impact of kidney disease on our community, and the importance of why we need to raise awareness so that people know. Most people don't know that high blood pressure and diabetes can lead to kidney failure.
So what are the numbers that they need to know?
They need to know what their A1C is, and they need to know what their blood pressure is. They need to check if they have been prescribed blood pressure medicine. They need to check their blood pressure daily and take the medication as prescribed if it's within the parameters that their doctor sets for them. And they need to healthy eating, exercise, and taking insulin if that's what you've been prescribed, or other medications, and checking their blood sugar. So you need to know like I said, their blood sugar on a daily basis. A1C is taken every 3 months, and then their blood pressure. And then for kidney disease, we have a kidney mobile, and we go around through communities throughout Illinois, partnering with other community organizations, and testing. And so we test for high blood pressure, we test for diabetes. We can run an A1C if they appear to be diabetic. We do 2 urinalysis to check for protein in the urine. And then we do check their BMI, because that's an important factor as well. And then people get a printout of all their results, and they have a consultation with a medical professional before they leave. And if they show signs that they may be heading into kidney disease, we also can do a stat blood draw to check their serum creatinine.
Yeah, and I've been with you, especially down in Springfield. And you have sent people to the hospital,
yes, we have,
because their numbers were so critical then.
Yeah. We've seen people who have blood pressure that's through the roof, and they had no idea that they have high blood pressure. We've seen people that are at stage 3 of kidney disease. There are 5 stages, and they come and meet us at a free screening and find out they're at stage 3. And people have called us back and thanked us for saving their lives.
So when you think about that, the important part of saving lives, your life has been saved twice.
Yes.
What do you want people to really know about the seriousness of kidney disease, but more importantly, how they can advocate for themselves and their families? Because a lot of times in communities of color, we don't talk about past medical history.
Right.
We don't know that. And I tell the story all the time about my big mama, right? And I would be nowhere without my big mama, right? Loved her to death. I think I loved her a lot. But she would have swollen ankles, right? And she would say this, and I'm 7, 8. I don't understand what a touch of the sugar is, right? But that was
Yeah.
our code language for diabetes. But I'm 6. I didn't know that. She died when I was 11 from complications from diabetes.
Yeah.
But then nobody ever talked about it again. And now my own mother has diabetes, and so we manage her, correctly and things like that. So, her A1C is in check. But if I hadn't remembered, and now there are other family members who have diabetes. So when you talked earlier about, we got to be healthy. So in case somebody does fall, one of us got to be able to help. Right. And so oftentimes in our families, we can't do that. So we want to make sure that we are talking about past medical history, that we're telling our children, because oftentimes they don't tell us.
Right.
My mother didn't tell us anything. We didn't know about breast cancer and, stuff like this. And don't get me started about menopause. But those are things that we should be talking about. Yes. So how should people advocate for themselves, especially because you woke up with kidney failure.
Yep. Yeah.
You were minding your own business, went to the hospital, woke up a month later, and they told you had kidney disease.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. So it is very important to, again, just like with organ donation, have conversations with your family about health history and that kind of thing. First of all, going to the doctor regularly, annually, which, by the way, I did. And well, that's another story about how we didn't get to the kidney disease until it was too late. But it is a silent killer. By the time you feel any effects of it, it's too late. You're too far gone with it. So it's important for people to go annually for their checkups. Like I said, keep their diabetes and high blood pressure in check. Have conversations with your family about your history. And just, healthy eating and doing healthy habits. People say, oh, it's hereditary. Well, some of it's just environmental, and some of the things that we get in a habit of doing that we don't have to continue, that can, bad habits that we've turned into fun that don't have to continue. So all these things are important for people to know and understand and, make some life changes if necessary.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit, as we wrap up. One, I just want to thank you so much for being here today, and we made it through without crying.
Yes.
Just want to say that. But tell me a little bit about what National Kidney Foundation has for the rest of the year. One, how they can contact you, and how we can help continue to help people advocate for themselves, because I'm a strong proponent of the more you know, the better off you'll be. And a lot of people don't want to read, and they want to use WebMD to cure everything.
Right.
But you really need, to your point, go to the doctor and read for yourself, do your research. Right. Because a lot of this is curable. I tell you, you can cure a multitude of sins with water.
Yes. Yes.
A multitude of sins with water, and people just don't even realize, oh, I don't like water. No, you need water. Right. Yes. You need water.
Water is super important.
Tell us a little bit about what you have for the rest of the year so that we can, one, support you. And I'm thankful that you're my neighbor across the hallway now.
Yes, so we have a plethora of patient programs, professional programs. We have a whole host of kidney screenings throughout the state. And we have our gala and the Walk for Kidneys.
Please, I was going to say.
The Walk for Kidneys is coming up on June 7th.
I will be here this year.
That's great.
I'm not on vacation.
It is an amazing day where the kidney community comes together and we just have a good time and, walk the lakefront, and it's awesome. So all of this information is available on our website, which is nkfi.org. And you can, people can look there. We also have Team Kidney that runs the marathon, and we have a runner in the Shamrock Shuffle.
Okay.
And so lots of opportunities to get involved. We are trying to build our volunteer program up to be as robust as I help to grow kidney folks.
Hey, and we can help train them. No worries.
Yes. And just that's the beauty of the Kidney Foundation and our collaboration with Gift of Hope, how you guys support us in all that we do, and we work together. We do a host of health fairs, and most of the time, Gift of Hope's there, NKFI is there. Sometimes we're side by side with our tables. So community outreach is so important, and I lead that team. along with our community health worker initiative too, and advocacy. So advocacy is important. You and I sat on the Illinois Kidney Task Force, where we came up with a report that hopefully Illinois the governor will read it, and some good things will come out of that.
Well, Monica, it is always a pleasure.
Yes.
I'm always happy to see you, but this is so important to me because sharing these stories helps the community we all have responsibility for. So it's not my community, your community, it's our community.
Yes.
And to be able to have these great conversations so people can see people who look like them,
yes,
who have been through the process. So you've been through not only the waiting part, one transplant, COVID, and then a second transplant. And it looks and feels stronger coming from somebody who's experienced that.
Yes.
And so I thank you for the help you've given me with my brother who's in end-stage renal failure, trying to help him be compliant. So I just want to say thank you for coming, stopping by to visit today.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.